I'm John, co-host of Primary Source.
And I'm Maya. Welcome to Primary Source, where we cut through the noise and go straight to the facts. As the U.S. government's new fiscal year began on October 1st, we saw large swaths of the government effectively shut down. Congress failed to pass a funding bill, leading to an estimated 750,000 non-essential federal employees being furloughed. While back pay is usually promised, the immediate financial strain on these families and the halt in critical economic data releases are undeniable consequences.
Right? Non-essential. But what's truly non-essential when it comes to people's livelihoods? The real question isn't just about the immediate impact, it's about the message this sends. This isn't just political gridlock. It's a display of power, a demonstration of who truly suffers when the system grinds to a halt and who frankly doesn't even notice. The financial markets, for example, barely flinch, suggesting a deeper disconnect or perhaps a calculated indifference.
You raise a critical point about market indifference, but let's look at the operational impact. The Congressional Budget Office estimates 750,000 employees furloughed. Beyond the personal hardship, how does this widespread absence, even if temporary, ripple through the economy, particularly when we consider the delay in crucial economic data that the Fed relies on?
Maya, that's precisely where the calculated aspect comes in. The data isn't just delayed, it's a blackout. And when the Fed is flying blind without key data like the September employment report, it creates an environment of uncertainty. This isn't a bug, it's a feature. It benefits those who thrive on volatility or have access to private data, like the ADP report, which they can spend any way they want. Is it incompetence that the government can't pass a budget? Or is it a convenient smokescreen that allows certain players to operate without full transparency, manipulating market sentiment while Main Street struggles to pay the mortgage?
I see it more as a symptom of catastrophic systemic failure. Even if we don't assume a conspiracy, the practical reality is that repeated shutdowns erode confidence in governance itself. You know, Goldman Sachs noted that 10-year Treasury yields and the dollar have historically weakened after shutdowns. This isn't just a domestic squabble. It signals to the world that the U.S. political system is fundamentally unstable and can't perform its most basic functions. That's an incredibly dangerous precedent, regardless of intent.
Unstable, or perhaps just showing its true colors. Think of it like a leaky faucet that keeps dripping. But instead of fixing it, the homeowners, our political class, just keep putting buckets under it and occasionally letting it overflow onto the floor. The leaky faucet here is the fundamental fiscal imbalance, and these shutdowns are just the visible overflows. They seem content with this cycle. So, is this genuinely about fiscal responsibility, or is it a controlled demolition of the middle class, forcing them to bear the brunt of political gamesmanship while Wall Street watches from a safe, dry distance?
Whether deliberate or just the consequence of severe dysfunction, the government shutdown clearly highlights a system under extreme strain, one that disproportionately affects ordinary citizens and completely obscures the true economic picture. And that leads us to another critical area where the official narrative and the reality on the ground just don't match up: the supposed resilience of the U.S. economy.
We're being told the U.S. economy is resilient, with real GDP growing faster than expected at 3.8% in the second quarter, driven by strong consumer spending. On the surface, that sounds like great news, a sign of health and stability. But what exactly is fueling this resilience, and who is it resilient for?
That's the critical question, because beneath that headline growth, we're seeing some alarming cracks appear in the foundation. Auto loan delinquencies, for instance, hit 5% in the second quarter. That's just shy of the historic high of 5.3% we saw back in 2010 in the thick of the financial crisis. And for subprime auto loans, it's even worse. Delinquencies are at 10%, the highest since 2008. This isn't just a few isolated cases. It's a huge portion of American households struggling to stay afloat.
So if the economy is so resilient, why are so many ordinary Americans struggling to make payments on their cars? This is a classic Main Street versus Wall Street scenario. Is this resilience just a statistical illusion created by a wealthy minority whose spending masks the pain of everyone else? Or is it a calculated outcome where the average citizen is being squeezed, forced to spend every last dollar to prop up a system that only benefits the financial institutions packaging and selling all this debt?
I don't know if it's calculated, but it's definitely a systemic pressure cooker. The personal savings rate has fallen for 5 consecutive months, hitting 4.6%, its lowest level in almost a year. People are spending more than they earn, and durable goods spending saw a stunning increase. This isn't sustainable. It points to a deep structural issue where wages aren't keeping up, forcing people to either drain their savings or go deeper into debt just to get by.
But why is that happening now? They tell us there were strong wage gains, but then the Fed is talking about cutting interest rates, even with this supposed resilience. Who benefits when the working class is forced to spend down their savings? When people are front-loading purchases because they're terrified of what tariffs will do to prices tomorrow? What does it say about the system itself if the only way to manufacture growth is by pushing its citizens to the absolute brink?
It's like a house that's been given a fresh coat of paint. It looks great from the outside, but inside, the foundation is cracking. The strong 3.8% GDP growth is the fresh paint, but the rising delinquencies and falling savings rate are the deep structural cracks. It's a financial treadmill where people are running faster and faster just to stay in the same place, and inevitably, more and more of them are starting to fall off.
Before we dive deeper into the hidden costs of this crisis, I just want to take a moment to ask everyone listening, please make sure you subscribe to Podcast Primary Source. Your support helps us keep bringing you these crucial, unfiltered conversations. That treadmill you mentioned, Maya, is a good analogy. But the question is, who designed the treadmill and who profits from its relentless pace? That brings us right to the architects of our economic policy, the Federal Reserve, and the absolute chaos of our global trade strategy.
Exactly. The Fed recently cut interest rates, which you think means the economy is slowing down. But we just discussed the revised, stronger GDP figures. This creates a fascinating and dangerous dilemma. You have internal dissent, like Governor Miran arguing that the so-called neutral rate is actually lower because of structural shifts from tariffs and immigration. And he's pushing for more aggressive cuts. It's a policy body at war with itself.
And that's where the plot thickens. If the Fed is cutting rates amidst what they call a resilient economy, and you have dissenting voices demanding even more aggressive easing, you have to ask, who is really pulling the strings here? Is this about economic data, or is it about pumping liquidity into the system to cushion the blow for specific sectors or financial institutions that are quietly drowning in bad debt? It feels less like a careful calibration and more like a forced hand guided by pressures we're not being told about.
But even if we ignore the why, the Fed's decisions are being made in a minefield created by other policies. The administration announced 100% tariffs on certain pharmaceutical products, plus new tariffs on trucks and furniture. These are meant to protect domestic industries, but what is the actual cost? These tariffs will inevitably boost inflation, especially for durable goods, which is a direct tax on the average consumer. It's pure incompetence, fighting a fire with gasoline.
That's the story they want us to believe, protecting domestic industries. But let's be cynical for a moment. Who are these domestic industries? Are they struggling small businesses, or are they powerful corporations and their lobbyists who stand to make a fortune from reduced competition, all while you pay higher prices? It's a massive transfer of wealth just disguised as patriotism. And don't forget the new H-1B visa fees. We're penalizing the very skilled workers that studies show contributed up to 50% of our productivity growth, all in the name of what? Is this incompetence or a deliberate dismantling of the factors that drive broad prosperity for everyone?
Even if we assume the worst motives, the practical implications are still catastrophic. The new U.S. port fees on Chinese shipping have already prompted China to threaten countermeasures. This isn't just about a few industries, it's a potential full-blown trade war that could permanently reshape global supply chains and make everything more expensive for everyone forever. From a stability perspective, these policies are pushing us closer to a breaking point, and it feels like no one is at the wheel.
A breaking point for whom, Maya? That's always the question. The global elite will always find new ways to profit, whether from disrupted supply chains or new manufacturing hubs. For them, it's just shuffling chess pieces on a board. But for the average citizen, it's higher prices, fewer choices, and a constant state of job insecurity. This isn't just a trade war, it's an economic realignment. And the only thing that matters is who is being realigned out of prosperity. This whole situation feels like a high stakes poker game where the house always wins. So are we just watching a political crisis, or are we in the early stages of a complete economic realignment designed to benefit a new set of winners?
Whether through monetary policy, trade barriers, or immigration rules, the decisions being made are creating a cascade of effects that touch every corner of the economy. The apparent resilience of the U.S. macroeconomy is clearly masking deep and growing financial vulnerabilities at the household level, creating a two-tiered reality.
And these government actions, whether you see them as catastrophically incompetent or deliberately manipulative, are generating profound uncertainty and completely eroding public trust. They serve specific, powerful interests while the rest of us are left to wonder what's real.
The persistent tension between official narratives of economic strength and the stark reality of individual financial struggle, coupled with policy decisions that seem to benefit a select few while burdening the many, compels us to question the very foundations of our economic system. Is this merely a temporary period of adjustment, a necessary but painful rebalancing act? Or are we witnessing a more profound, deliberate reordering of power and prosperity, where the average citizen is left to decipher a future fraught with engineered uncertainty, and the ultimate question is not if the system will break, but who will be left holding the pieces?